Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher known for his bold and often controversial ideas, challenges our understanding of freedom. He introduces us to a paradox that is both unsettling and thought-provoking. The very thing that promises to liberate us, autonomy, is also the force that can destroy us. His philosophy dives deep into the complexities of freedom, not as a gift to be enjoyed, but as a burden that forces individuals to confront their innermost fears and desires. When the traditional structures of meaning and authority collapse, we are left in a vast and empty void, grappling with what it truly means to be free. Nietzsche's concept of freedom is not as simple or idealistic as it is often portrayed. Many people envision freedom as an escape from limitations, a state of blissful autonomy where one can live without constraints. Yet Nietzsche suggests that this very autonomy can lead to an overwhelming struggle. True freedom, according to him, is not the savior we hope it to be. Instead, it may be a trap that entangles both the mind and spirit in a relentless quest for self-definition and existential purpose. To understand Nietzsche's view on freedom, we must first come to terms with this paradox, that autonomy can both liberate us and devastate us. It has the potential to leave us stranded in the desolate wilderness of the human condition, where the burden of freedom weighs heavily on our shoulders. In Nietzsche's view, freedom is not the idyllic escape that many imagine it to be. On the contrary, it is the beginning of an endless struggle. When traditional structures of authority and moral values are questioned, discarded, or rendered meaningless, individuals are left with the daunting task of creating their own values. This is where the first paradox of freedom emerges. The moment we are freed from the constraints of society, we are confronted with the crushing responsibility of choosing and defining who we are. No longer are we guided by prescribed paths or divine blueprints for life. The world, once filled with rules and meanings dictated by external sources, becomes a blank canvas. And while this may seem liberating at first, Nietzsche argues that the responsibility to fill it with meaning is overwhelming for most people. Without clear direction, many are left wandering aimlessly in the vast expanse of their autonomy, unsure of where to go or what to do with their newfound freedom. In this void, where external structures no longer dictate our actions, the ego emerges in full force. It is exposed, raw and vulnerable, as the individual becomes both the creator and the judge of their own existence. The internal conflict is unavoidable. On the one hand, there is the desire to forge ahead, to create a meaningful life based on personal values. On the other hand, there is an ever-present fear of failure and the crushing realization that there are no guarantees. Nietzsche presents this as a crucial moment in the human experience, the challenge of self-overcoming. The idea of creating one's own path is both a liberating force and a torturous burden. It requires constant self-reflection, an endless striving to be more, and above all, the willingness to face the abyss of meaninglessness that comes with autonomy. Despite the overwhelming weight of this responsibility, Nietzsche does not view it solely as a curse. He sees it as essential for personal growth. The act of confronting this burden is what allows individuals to transcend their limitations. But the path to transcendence is fraught with peril. Not everyone is equipped to handle the isolation that comes with rejecting societal norms and creating new values. The question then arises, is autonomy truly a gift if it leaves us feeling isolated and lost in our quest for meaning? Nietzsche's answer is nuanced. While autonomy offers the potential for profound personal growth, it can also lead to a crippling fear of the unknown. For many, the allure of freedom is irresistible. It represents an escape from the dictates of authority, tradition, and conformity. But when faced with the stark reality of what freedom truly entails, the desire for liberation can quickly turn into a prison. The more we seek autonomy, the more we realize that freedom is not simply about doing what we want. It is about constantly facing the consequences of our choices. This fear of responsibility, of being alone in the vast expanse of the world without the comfort of traditional structures, becomes the ultimate terror for Nietzsche. This fear is not merely psychological, it is existential. It is the fear of confronting our own limitations, weaknesses, and the inescapable truth that we are finite beings in an infinite universe. As we step away from the comforting illusions provided by societal norms, we are confronted with the starkness of existence. The freedom to choose means we must also face the consequences of our choices. This overwhelming responsibility can lead to despair as individuals struggle to cope with the weight of their decisions. It is this fear, Nietzsche suggests, that often drives people to retreat back into the safety of convention. They seek out structures and systems that offer the illusion of security and certainty, even if those systems limit their potential for true autonomy. In this sense, Nietzsche argues that the fear of freedom can become so overwhelming that we willingly bind ourselves to systems of control, even if those systems ultimately restrict our growth. But the deeper question remains, is this fear a natural response to freedom, or is it a manifestation of our deep-seated need for meaning in a world that offers no guarantees? Nietzsche challenges us to confront this fear and to embrace it. He encourages us to see it not as a barrier to freedom, but as an opportunity for growth. Yet, in the face of such daunting uncertainty, it is easy to understand why many people would choose to retreat into the familiar. The irony lies in the fact that the very quest for freedom, which is so deeply desired, can become the source of our greatest fear. The question of meaning is at the core of Nietzsche's philosophy, and it is intricately tied to the concept of autonomy. As individuals are freed from traditional moral structures, they are left with the daunting task of creating their own sense of purpose. However, this creation is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing struggle that requires constant self-examination and transformation. Nietzsche's idea of becoming who you are is not a simple or straightforward process. It is a continuous, often painful journey that demands relentless introspection and the willingness to change. The individual must not only create meaning, but do so in the face of an indifferent, chaotic universe that offers no inherent purpose or direction. This constant creation of meaning is both the blessing and the curse of autonomy. The freedom to choose one's path, to create one's own values, can be a deeply fulfilling endeavor, but it also demands a level of effort and self-awareness that many are ill-prepared for. Nietzsche warns that without a clear direction or goal, this process can easily spiral into despair. The constant need to define oneself, to create new values and ideals, becomes a never-ending struggle. It is as if the individual is always chasing after something elusive, always searching for meaning in a world that refuses to offer any definitive answers. The tension between autonomy and meaning is profound. As we struggle to create meaning in our lives, we also confront the ever-present threat of nihilism, the belief that life is ultimately meaningless. Nietzsche challenges us to embrace this struggle, to continue creating meaning, even in the face of uncertainty and doubt. However, for many individuals, this relentless pursuit of meaning can become overwhelming. The constant pressure to define oneself, to forge a path in a world without inherent purpose, can lead to exhaustion, disillusionment, and despair. One of the most devastating consequences of true autonomy, according to Nietzsche, is the profound sense of isolation that it can create. The individual who embraces freedom and the responsibility of self-creation often finds themselves standing alone. This isolation is not merely physical, it is existential. The individual who rejects societal norms and creates their own path becomes estranged from those around them. The more we embrace autonomy, the more we realize that there is no universal path to follow, no common set of values that bind us together. The result is a deep and often painful loneliness as we find ourselves disconnected from others who cling to familiar structures and traditions. This isolation, however, is not just a byproduct of autonomy, it is an integral part of it. Nietzsche suggests that true autonomy requires a certain level of detachment from the world. It demands a willingness to stand apart from the crowd, to confront the raw and often uncomfortable truth of existence. But this detachment comes at a cost. The more we detach ourselves from the collective, the more we are left to face the stark reality of our own existence. This isolation can lead to feelings of alienation and despair as we are left to navigate the world without the comfort of shared values or a sense of belonging. Autonomy, while offering the possibility of personal growth and freedom, also exposes us to the harsh reality of our own solitude. It is a prison without bars, a concept that captures the heavy burden of responsibility that comes with true freedom. Many people desire to escape the perceived chains of societal expectations, believing that freedom will bring them happiness and fulfillment. However, Nietzsche reveals that the reality of freedom is far more complex. True freedom demands an intense degree of personal responsibility. The individual who chooses to be free must carry the full weight of their choices, with no external authority to blame or defer to. This creates a profound sense of accountability that can be overwhelming. The freedom to choose is both liberating and terrifying, as each decision feels like a step into the unknown, with consequences that reverberate throughout one's life. The individual with true autonomy cannot avoid the consequences of their actions. There are no excuses, no societal frameworks to justify behavior, no group to share the blame. In a world where responsibility is often outsourced to institutions, Nietzsche's vision of autonomy reveals the true cost of freedom. It is not just about choosing for oneself. It is about bearing the weight of those choices without the comfort of external validation or support. This existential burden of autonomy, Nietzsche argues, is what ultimately destroys many people. The constant need to create meaning, to define oneself, to navigate a world without clear direction or purpose can lead to a sense of hopelessness and despair. For those who are not prepared to confront this burden, autonomy becomes a prison rather than a path to freedom. Instead of feeling liberated, they feel trapped by the overwhelming responsibility that comes with freedom. In Nietzsche's view, the only way to overcome this burden is through self-overcoming, the process of constantly evolving and striving to be more than what we are. It is a path of constant growth and transformation, but it is not without its dangers. The individual who chooses this path must be willing to confront their own weaknesses, fears, and limitations. They must be prepared to face the abyss of meaninglessness and to create meaning in spite of it. This is the true challenge of autonomy, to find the strength to continue creating meaning in a world that offers none, to embrace the struggle of existence, and to find purpose in the act of becoming.